Listen to me, family. I don't care what you've been through. I don't care how long you've cried, how many nights you've spent with tears soaking your pillow. I'm here to tell you today that the same God who allowed you to shed those tears is about to turn them into a testimony that will shake the foundations of the earth. Hold on, because this is the moment where your pain will give birth to purpose. Your heartbreak will become your breakthrough. Get ready, God is about to turn your tears into testimonies. When you look back on the struggles, the heartache, and the pain you've experienced, it's easy to feel as though everything you've been through has only served to bring you down. You might ask yourself, why am I suffering? Why are these tears flowing so freely without an end in sight? But I want you to see something today that will change your perspective. Every tear you've shed, every ounce of pain you've endured, has been a seed that God has planted in the soil of your future. You might not see it yet, but those tears are not a sign of defeat. They are the beginning of a harvest that is yet to come. Think about it for a moment. When a farmer plants a seed, he doesn't expect to see immediate results. That seed goes into the ground, buried out of sight, often in the dark, and it undergoes a process, something that appears to be slow, something that takes time. The seed is softened by the soil, it is nourished by the rain, and it begins to break open. Slowly at first, until it emerges into something beautiful. The farmer waits, trusting that the seed will grow into what it was meant to become. He knows the harvest is coming, even though he can't yet see it. Just like that seed, your tears are not wasted. They may seem insignificant right now as they fall one after another, but in God's hands, they are being used to cultivate something far greater. You may feel like you're in the darkness waiting, unsure of what is happening, but trust that the process is unfolding exactly as it should. Those tears you've cried are not just drops of sorrow. They are seeds that God is using to shape your future. The soil of your heart may have been torn up by pain, by loss, by disappointment, but in that very soil, God is planting something that will bear fruit. Every tear represents a moment of growth, a moment where God is cultivating your character, your faith, and your resilience. He's allowing you to go through the process because He knows that the harvest will be worth it. You might not see it today, but that pain is preparing you for a breakthrough that's coming around the corner. God doesn't waste anything. He doesn't let a single tear fall without purpose. The heartbreak you faced is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of something new. Each tear that you've shed is building something inside of you. It's strengthening your spirit, developing your trust in God, and deepening your relationship with Him. You are being shaped into someone who is prepared to handle the blessings that are on their way. When that harvest comes, you will look back at every tear and realize that it was all part of God's plan to bring you to a place of victory. So, when you feel like your tears are endless, when you feel like the weight of the world is too much to bear, remember this: your tears are not in vain. They are the seeds that will produce your harvest. God is using them to mold you, to refine you, and to prepare you for a future filled with blessings that you can't even begin to imagine right now. Hold on to this truth, because the harvest is coming. And when it does, it will be far greater than anything you could have ever dreamed. The tears you've shed will be transformed into a testimony that glorifies God and inspires others. Your pain will give birth to purpose. Your sorrow will become joy. And your heartache will lead to a harvest of blessings that will change your life forever. There are moments in life when it feels like everything is happening all at once, when the trials seem to hit you from every direction, when it feels as though nothing is going right. In these times, it's easy to become frustrated, confused, and impatient. You'll wonder why God hasn't moved yet, why He hasn't answered your prayers, why He hasn't intervened in your situation. It's in these moments that we must remind ourselves of one fundamental truth: God's timing is always perfect. You see, we often view time through our own lens, based on our own understanding and expectations. We want answers now. We want solutions today. We want the pain to stop immediately. But God doesn't operate on our timetable. His ways are higher than our ways, and His timing is more precise than we could ever comprehend. The truth is, God is never early and He's never late. He is always right on time. He knows exactly when to step in, exactly when to intervene, and exactly when to make a move that will bring the greatest good, not just to you, but to the lives of everyone who will witness the testimony He is building in you. There is a purpose in the waiting, family. While we're often focused on the immediate solution, God is more focused on the bigger picture. He's not just concerned with getting you through a difficult moment. He's concerned with shaping your life for His greater purpose. In the waiting, God is preparing you. He is building your character, strengthening your faith, and deepening your dependence on Him. If God were to answer your prayers too quickly, you might not be ready for the blessing that's about to come. Sometimes the delay isn't about God saying no or not yet. It's about God getting you to a place where you are spiritually, emotionally, and mentally prepared for what He is about to release in your life. We often look at a situation, and in our impatience, we think that because things aren't happening the way we want or at the speed we want, God has forgotten about us. But that's a lie. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean God isn't working. Just because you don't hear His voice doesn't mean He's silent. Sometimes God is working in the quiet places, behind the scenes, where you can't see the wheels turning, where you can't hear the gears grinding. Even in the stillness, He's moving. He's making things happen. He's aligning the right people, opening doors, closing others, and orchestrating circumstances that will set you up for your breakthrough. In fact, some of the greatest victories in Scripture came after long periods of waiting. Think about the story of Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison. For years, Joseph waited, but in that waiting, God was preparing him to rule Egypt, to save his family, and to fulfill a larger purpose. If God had answered Joseph's prayer at any point during those years, if He had removed the pain too soon, Joseph wouldn't have been prepared for what lay ahead. But God knew exactly what He was doing. God's timing was perfect. The same is true for you. Whatever situation you're facing, wherever you find yourself right now, understand that God has not forgotten you. His silence is not a sign of abandonment. His delays are not a sign of denial. God is working on your behalf, even when you can't see it. He is refining you in the fire of your trials, molding you into the person He has created you to be. And when the time is right, when you are ready, when the circumstances align perfectly, He will move in a way that will blow your mind. So don't get discouraged when things don't happen in your time frame. Don't lose heart when the breakthrough seems far away. Trust that God is preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. His timing is always perfect. He knows when you're ready, and He knows when to make the move. So stand firm in faith, keep praying, keep trusting, and keep believing, because when God moves, He will move in such a way that no one, not even you, will be able to deny that it was His hand at work. And when that moment comes, you'll look back and say it was worth the wait. There are times in life when we go through situations that seem impossible to overcome, challenges that make us feel weak, inadequate, and even defeated. You might look at your circumstances and wonder how you're ever going to get through this. It feels as though the weight of the world is pressing down on you, and there's no way to lift it off. But I want to remind you today that your struggles are not without purpose. Every hardship you face is shaping something inside of you that you can't yet see. It's developing your strength, your resilience, and your character. When you're in the midst of a trial, it's easy to focus on the pain, to feel as though the storm is never going to end. But what you don't always realize is that in those moments of struggle, God is building something within you that will serve you in the future. He's not allowing you to go through this trial to destroy you. He's allowing you to go through it to develop you. The test is not just about whether or not you can endure, it's about how you come out of it. When you emerge from this struggle, you'll be stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the challenges ahead. You'll be able to look back and see how far you've come, and you'll realize that the very things that tried to break you have actually made you stronger. Think about the process of refining gold. Gold in its raw form is impure and filled with imperfections. But when it is placed in the fire, the heat doesn't destroy it, it purifies it. The impurities rise to the surface and the goldsmith removes them, leaving behind pure, refined gold. The process is intense, it's uncomfortable, and it requires patience. But the result is something valuable, something that can be used for greater purposes. The same is true for you. The trials you face may feel like fire, but they are purifying you. They are removing the impurities from your life, the doubt, the fear, the insecurity, so that you can emerge as something far stronger than you were before. In these moments of struggle, it's essential to remember that God is working in you. He is shaping your character and strengthening your faith. The pressure you're feeling is not meant to crush you, it's meant to mold you into the person He has called you to be. When you're faced with challenges, you learn things about yourself that you never would have known if you hadn't gone through the difficulty. You discover a resilience within you that you never thought possible. You find that you have more strength than you knew you had and more endurance than you ever imagined. The trials are preparing you for greater things. They are stretching you, teaching you to rely on God's strength rather than your own. It's in those moments when you feel the weakest that God's power is made perfect. When you feel as though you can't take another step, He gives you the strength to keep going. And when you come through the other side, you will see that you are not the same person you were before. You are stronger, you are more equipped, and you are more capable of handling the next challenge that comes your way. The beauty of this process is that God doesn't leave you in the struggle alone. He is with you every step of the way, guiding you, strengthening you, and teaching you. In those moments of weakness, you are actually becoming more dependent on Him. And in that dependence, you find the true source of your strength. You discover that you are not meant to rely on your own abilities alone, but on the power of God working within you. The struggles you face force you to lean into Him, to trust Him in ways you never would have otherwise. What may seem like a setback, what may feel like a burden too heavy to bear, is actually God's way of preparing you for the future He has planned for you. You are being refined, shaped, and strengthened so that when the time comes for you to step into your purpose, you will be ready. The difficulties you are facing right now are not in vain. They are preparing you for something greater. And when you come through this trial, you will look back and realize that the struggle was necessary for you to become the person God created you to be. You will see that the strength you gained in the process was worth every moment of hardship. So don't be discouraged by the struggles you face. Embrace them, knowing that God is using them to shape you into something stronger. Understand that your pain is not pointless. It is working in you, refining you, and preparing you for greater things ahead. And when you emerge from this season of struggle, you will be able to stand firm, knowing that you have been shaped by the hands of God Himself, ready to walk into the purpose He has called you to. There are few things in life that feel as heavy as the weight of grief, loss, or struggle. In those moments when the world feels dark and heavy, it seems as though the pain will never end. But there is something incredible about the way God works in our lives. He promises that joy comes in the morning. This doesn't mean that everything will instantly get better once the sun rises, but it means that there is hope beyond the dark time. What may seem like endless weeping in the night will eventually give way to joy that is even deeper than the sorrow that preceded it. There's an amazing transformation that happens when we hold on through the night. God promises that mourning will turn into dancing, that sorrow will be replaced with joy. We see this truth reflected throughout Scripture in countless lives that endured trials and loss but found joy in the end. The story of Job is a powerful reminder of this promise. Job lost everything, his wealth, his health, and even his children. He sat in ashes, covered in sores, surrounded by grief and pain. But through it all, Job never let go of his faith. He questioned, he cried, and he wondered why, but he continued to trust in the goodness of God. And what happened in the end? God restored him, not just to where he was before, but to a place of greater blessing. His mourning turned to joy, and his grief was replaced with the peace of knowing that God's plan was bigger than his understanding. There's something so powerful about this idea that the darkest nights, the longest seasons of sorrow, are not without purpose. Though you may feel like you're walking through a never-ending valley, know that this moment is temporary. Joy is coming, and when it does, it will be so much more profound because of the sorrow that has been endured. The contrast between the night and the morning is stark. But that's what makes the joy so powerful. It's in the night that our faith is tested, and it's in the night that we grow the most, but it's in the morning that we see the fruit of that growth. The reward for the endurance. When we go through deep sorrow, it's easy to believe that we'll never be the same again. We feel like the weight of our pain will forever define us. We might feel as though we've lost something irreparable, that the joy we once knew has vanished forever. But here's the truth. God is in the business of turning mourning into dancing. He takes what the enemy meant for evil and uses it to bring about something good. He doesn't waste our pain. What seems like an endless season of darkness is the very place where God is working behind the scenes, preparing you for a new season of joy. God's promise isn't just about a future event, it's about what he's doing right now in the midst of your struggle. Even as you endure hardship, he is planting the seeds of joy in your heart. He is working on your behalf even when it doesn't feel like it. The joy that is coming may look different from what you expected, but it will be all the sweeter because of the season of mourning you've walked through. When God brings you through the storm, when he brings you into a place of peace and joy, you'll see how the pain was part of the process, part of the journey that led you to where you are now. Think about the seasons of nature, how after the long, harsh winter, the spring comes with new life, with vibrant colors, with growth. The winter might have been cold, dark, and uncomfortable, but it was necessary for the growth and blossoming of the flowers that come with spring. In the same way, your season of mourning, though difficult and painful, is preparing the soil for something new, something beautiful. Just as the earth cannot produce new life without going through the winter, neither can you experience the fullness of joy without first enduring the season of sorrow. And when the morning comes, you will realize that the joy you experience is far greater because of the depth of the sorrow you've overcome. And in the midst of your mourning, don't lose hope. Hold on, because morning is coming. It may feel like the darkness will never end, but the light is just around the corner. What you are going through now is shaping the person you are becoming. You will rise from this with a deeper understanding of God's goodness, a deeper appreciation for his faithfulness, and a greater capacity to experience the joy that only he can give. Your mourning will give way to dancing, and the sorrow you feel now will be replaced with joy that will overflow in your life, touching those around you and inspiring others to keep going through their own seasons of struggle. When God turns your mourning into dancing, it's not just about personal healing, it's a testimony. Your journey through grief, through sorrow, and through hardship will be a beacon of hope to others who are walking through their own valleys. Your joy will speak louder than your pain ever did, and your story of restoration will bring encouragement to those who need it most. Keep holding on, because joy is coming, and it will be a joy that is deeper, stronger, and more lasting than you ever thought possible. God will turn your mourning into dancing, and you will find yourself living in a new season of peace and joy. Every tear you have shed, every heartache you have experienced, every difficult moment you've walked through has a purpose in God's grand design. It may not always make sense to you in the moment. You may look at your circumstances and wonder why such pain has to be a part of your journey. But I want to assure you today, your pain has purpose. God doesn't allow us to go through hardship for no reason. Every struggle, every disappointment, every moment of sorrow is being used by God to shape you, refine you, and prepare you for something greater. You see, our pain isn't meaningless. The Bible teaches us that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. That means that the very things you are going through, the things that feel impossible to bear, are being used by God to bring about a good outcome. It may not seem good in the moment, but when you step back and look at the big picture, you will begin to see how God has been working all along. Think about the life of Joseph. He was sold by his brothers into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison, and separated from his family for many years. But every hardship he faced wasn't just a setback. It was a setup for something greater. God was using those difficult moments to shape Joseph into the leader He had called him to be. Every trial Joseph faced, every moment of pain, was part of God's divine plan to elevate him to a place where he would eventually save not only his family, but an entire nation. Joseph's pain was not wasted. It had a purpose. God was refining his character, building his leadership abilities, and preparing him for the destiny that lay ahead. And when Joseph finally understood what God was doing, he could look back and say, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. The pain, the rejection, the heartache, God used it all for a purpose. Your pain too has purpose. You might not see it right now, but God is using it to refine you. He is molding your character, your strength, your faith, and your ability to lead. The challenges you are facing are preparing you for a future that is far greater than you could ever imagine. Just like gold has to go through the fire to be purified, your faith and your character are being purified through the trials you are facing. The things that are hard right now are the things that are shaping you into a person who can handle the blessings that God is about to release in your life. It's important to remember that God is never wasteful. He never allows us to go through anything without a purpose. When you are in the middle of your struggle, it can feel like the pain is senseless. You might question why you have to go through this particular trial, why it seems like things aren't working out, why the doors you've knocked on haven't opened yet. But know this, God has a plan. His purpose for you is greater than the pain you're experiencing. And He will use every single moment to work something good in you. Even when you feel like you've reached your breaking point, know that you are not broken. You are being refined. You are being prepared for something more. The very thing that seems to be breaking you is the thing that is building you. It is through the struggle that you will learn to rely on God more fully, to trust in His timing, and to develop a deeper understanding of His love and His faithfulness. Your pain is not a punishment. It is part of the process that is transforming you into the person you are destined to become. As you go through difficult times, it's easy to feel alone. It's easy to believe that no one understands your struggle, that no one sees your tears, and that no one can possibly know what you are going through. But remember, God sees, He knows your pain, and He is with you every step of the way. His love for you is greater than any struggle you face, and His plan for your life is bigger than any obstacle in your path. He is using your pain for a purpose, His purpose. And when you come through this season of difficulty, you will look back and see that the struggle was not in vain. You will see how God was shaping you, how He was building your faith, and how He was preparing you for the great things that are ahead. Just like a seed must be buried in the ground and go through a process of transformation before it can bear fruit, you too are going through a process of transformation. The tears you've cried, the heartache you've felt, the struggles you've endured, they are not in vain. They are part of the process that will lead to your breakthrough. Your pain will not be wasted. It will become the very thing that brings you closer to the purpose God has for your life. And when that purpose is revealed, when the harvest comes, you will understand why you had to endure. You will look at your life and see how God used everything, the pain, the heartbreak, the disappointment, to bring you to a place of victory. Your pain will become your testimony, and your testimony will inspire others. God will take what was meant for harm and turn it into something beautiful. Your suffering will give birth to something greater than you ever imagined. So, hold on to the pain. Trust that God is using it for a purpose. Your pain is not wasted. It is shaping you, refining you, and preparing you for a future filled with blessings that will far outweigh the struggles you're facing today. And when you step into that future, you will see just how much your pain had a purpose. You will see that it was all part of God's plan to bring you to a place of greater strength, greater joy, and greater purpose than you could have ever imagined. There is a deep and profound truth that many of us often forget in the midst of life's storms. God never wastes a season. The seasons we endure, no matter how painful or difficult they may seem, are not just random occurrences in our lives. They are intentional moments in which God is preparing us for what's next. The challenges, the waiting, the moments of difficulty, they are all part of a divine process that is shaping us, refining us, and making us ready for the purpose He has for us. When you are going through a season of difficulty, it can feel like you are stuck in a place of frustration, like nothing is moving forward, and that the breakthrough you long for is nowhere in sight. It's easy to become disheartened in these moments, to believe that the pain, the struggle, or the waiting is all for nothing. But I want to remind you that every season has a purpose. God is at work in every moment, even when it seems like nothing is happening. Even in the quiet and the waiting, God is moving behind the scenes, preparing you for what's to come. Consider the seasons of nature. There are times when the trees shed their leaves and everything seems barren, cold, and lifeless. But in those moments, the tree is not dead. It's preparing for new growth. Under the surface, the roots are being strengthened, and the tree is getting ready for the new season of flourishing. In the same way, God uses the barren seasons in our lives to prepare us for the new growth He is about to bring. The waiting might feel like a time of inactivity, but it is actually a time of strengthening, a time of preparation, a time when God is doing something deep within you that will become evident in the next season. Many times we focus so much on the immediate desires and the urgency of our needs that we overlook what God is doing in us through the process. We might want a quick fix, a fast solution, but often God doesn't work in haste. He is cultivating something within us that takes time. It's not about rushing through the difficult seasons to get to the good part. It's about allowing God to work in us while we are in the struggle. God doesn't just want to get us through the storm. He wants to shape us into who we need to be in order to thrive once we're on the other side of it. Think about the lives of those in the Bible who had to endure long seasons of waiting and difficulty. Take Abraham, for example. God gave him a promise that he would be the father of many nations, yet for years he had to wait for the fulfillment of that promise. Abraham's patience was tested. His faith was stretched, and he even had moments of doubt. But through it all, God was working in him. God was strengthening his faith, teaching him to trust in God's timing, and preparing him to step into the promise. When the time came, Abraham was ready to receive what God had promised him. And even more, his faith became a testimony to generations to come. His waiting wasn't in vain. It was part of the process that would bring him to the fulfillment of God's promise in your life. You may feel like you've been waiting for years for that breakthrough, for that change, for the fulfillment of God's promises. You may feel like nothing is happening, but let me encourage you today. God is working in the waiting. He is preparing you for something greater. He is refining your character, deepening your faith, and teaching you to depend on him. The season of waiting, while difficult, is not wasted. It is a time when God is preparing you for the future that he has for you. What if the season you're in right now is the very thing that is shaping you for the destiny that lies ahead? What if the challenges you are facing are actually making you stronger, making you more resilient, and helping you grow in ways you could never have imagined? It's in the struggle that we learn to lean on God more fully, to trust in his timing more completely, and to grow in our faith more deeply. The truth is that God doesn't waste anything. He uses every experience, every tear, every moment of hardship to mold us into the person he's calling us to be. Our journey is not about getting to the destination as quickly as possible. It's about allowing God to work in us, allowing him to refine us, to purify us, and to prepare us for what is coming. And when that season of waiting or difficulty finally ends, when the breakthrough arrives, we will realize that all the struggle, all the waiting was not in vain. It was God's way of getting us ready for something bigger and better than we could have imagined. So don't despise the season you're in right now, no matter how difficult or painful it may seem. Don't think that the waiting is pointless. God is using this time to do something incredible in your life. He is preparing you, strengthening you, and getting you ready for the new season of fruitfulness and blessing that is coming. When you step into the next chapter of your life, you will be amazed at how the struggles you faced have equipped you to handle the blessings that are about to pour into your life. God never wastes a season. He is always at work, even when you can't see it. Keep trusting in his timing and know that he is preparing you for something beautiful. There is something deeply comforting in the realization that God has already gone before us. The trials, the challenges, and the obstacles we face in life are never a surprise to him. Before we even encounter them, God is already at work, preparing the way for us, providing the resources we need, and laying the foundation for our victory. We may walk through difficulties and pain, but we can be confident that God is not caught off guard by our struggles. He is the one who is always ahead of us, guiding us, clearing the path, and making sure that nothing can come against his plan for our lives. In every season of life, especially the difficult ones, it can sometimes feel like we're walking alone. We might wonder where God is or why we are facing such hardship, but the truth is that God is already present in the future, already in the place where we will ultimately find peace and resolution. He sees the outcome from the very beginning. He is not only with us in the present, but has already gone ahead of us, making a way where there seems to be no way. In times of distress, when it feels like everything is falling apart, remember that God's foresight is greater than our present circumstances. He is not reacting to life's challenges as we are. He has already seen them, and he has already prepared for them. The key here is to understand that God is working in ways we cannot always see. He is orchestrating events, positioning people, and aligning circumstances in ways that we cannot fathom. There are moments in our lives when we look back and realize that certain things happened at exactly the right time. Things that seemed coincidental at the time, but when we look back, we can see how perfectly God had arranged them. These moments are not just random events. They are the evidence of God's hand at work in our lives, guiding us, protecting us, and leading us into the future He has prepared for us. Take the example of the Israelites. When they were trapped between the Red Sea and the Egyptian army, they had no idea how they would escape. It looked like a hopeless situation. But God had already gone before them. Before they even reached the Red Sea, God had prepared a way out. He parted the sea, creating a path for them to walk through. The Israelites didn't see it coming, but God had already made a way where there seemed to be no way. And just like He did for them, He is doing the same for you. Even when you don't see a solution, God is already working behind the scenes to bring you through to victory. The path might not be visible yet, but you can trust that it is already being paved. God's foresight is not limited to just the big moments of life. It extends to every detail, every aspect of our lives. We may not understand why we are going through certain things, but we can trust that God in His infinite wisdom is preparing us for something far greater than we can see. In our moments of fear, anxiety, or uncertainty, we can take comfort in the truth that God is always one step ahead. He has already been to the place where we are heading, and He is there waiting for us with open arms. Sometimes we might find ourselves in seasons of waiting, feeling like nothing is happening, and we may wonder why we are stuck in this place. But even in those moments, God is still ahead of us, preparing the way. He is working in the background, shifting things in our favor, and putting the pieces together so that when the time comes, we will be ready. The waiting is not wasted. It is part of God's preparation process. It's during these times of waiting that we learn to trust more fully in God's plan and timing. And when we do step into the new season He has for us, we will be amazed at how everything has come together perfectly. There is also something powerful in knowing that God's plans for us are always better than anything we can imagine for ourselves. We often find ourselves planning and strategizing, trying to figure out how to fix things or how to achieve our goals. But God's plans surpass our own. He knows what we need even before we ask, and He is already working to meet those needs. The truth is that God has more in store for us than we can see. And He is guiding us every step of the way, even when we can't see the end result. Think about how often in life we get frustrated or disheartened when things don't go as planned, when doors close, or when the path we thought we were meant to walk suddenly becomes blocked. It's easy to feel like everything is falling apart, but this is where we have to trust that God is not only with us in those moments, but that He has already prepared something better on the other side of the obstacle. Sometimes the very things that seem like setbacks are actually stepping stones leading us to something greater. God's foresight allows Him to know what we need before we even realize it. He knows what will bring us true fulfillment, and He is aligning everything in our lives to bring us to that place. Even when life feels uncertain, we can be assured that God has already seen the future and has made provision for it. His plans are unshakable, and His guidance is perfect. You may not always know what's coming next, but you can trust that God does. He has already gone before you, and He is making sure that everything works together for your good. Trust in His timing, trust in His guidance, and trust that He is leading you toward a future filled with hope, peace, and purpose. So no matter what you're facing today, know this: God has already gone before you. He has already prepared the way. The struggles you're experiencing today are not unexpected to Him. He has already made provision for your victory. And when you look back on this season, you will see how God has been working all along, preparing the path and making sure that you walk in the fullness of His purpose for your life. Trust that He knows exactly where you are going and that He is leading you there every step of the way. In life, there are moments when the weight of the world seems to press in on us, and we begin to feel as though we cannot carry the burden any longer. Whether it is the loss of a loved one, a devastating setback in our careers, the strain of a broken relationship, or the weight of unmet dreams, the challenges we face can sometimes feel insurmountable. We wonder if we will ever make it through, if we will ever see the light at the end of the tunnel. But in those very moments of struggle, there is a promise we can hold on to. God will give us strength to endure. His strength is not like our own. It is a supernatural strength that comes from Him, and it is available to us whenever we need it. God does not promise us a life free from pain or difficulty. In fact, the Bible tells us that we will face trials in this world. But it also reminds us that we do not have to face them alone. God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in times of trouble. When the weight of our burdens feels unbearable, we can turn to Him, and He will equip us with the strength we need to stand firm. He has promised that His grace is sufficient for us, and His power is made perfect in our weakness. This doesn't mean that we won't experience moments of weakness or discouragement. There will be times when we feel like we are at the end of our rope, when it seems like there is no way forward. But in those moments, God's strength becomes most evident. He doesn't just give us the strength to get through the day. He gives us the strength to rise above our circumstances. His strength doesn't just help us survive the storm, it enables us to thrive in the midst of it. In the most difficult seasons of life, we discover a strength that is not our own. It is a strength that comes from trusting in God's presence, power, and provision. There is a beautiful truth in knowing that when we are weak, God is strong. Our own strength is limited, but God's strength is limitless. When we acknowledge our weakness and turn to Him, He fills us with the power we need to keep going. It gives us the strength to rise after we fall, to stand after we stumble, and to persevere when the road ahead seems too hard to travel. His strength is a constant source of support, a foundation that we can rely on no matter what challenges we face. Think about the Apostle Paul, who, despite facing countless hardships, was able to say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Paul endured beatings, imprisonment, shipwrecks, and countless other trials. Yet he was able to keep pressing forward because he knew that his strength didn't come from his own ability, it came from God. He had learned to depend on God's power, and in doing so, he found the strength to endure even the most difficult circumstance. Paul's testimony reminds us that when we are facing our own trials, we too can tap into God's strength. We don't have to rely on our own limited resources. We have access to an infinite supply of strength that will never run dry. It's also important to remember that God's strength is not only for the big battles in life. Sometimes it's the small everyday struggles that drain us the most. The constant pressure of work, the challenges of raising children, the stress of managing multiple responsibilities. These are the things that often leave us feeling weary and overwhelmed. But even in these everyday moments, God's strength is available to us. And we feel like we're running on empty, God will replenish us. When we are tired and weary, He will renew our strength. Just as a tree draws nourishment from the roots, we are able to draw strength from God's presence, allowing us to continue on even when we feel exhausted. God's strength is also a strength that brings peace. It is a strength that steadies us in the midst of chaos. It is a strength that gives us courage to face the unknown and confidence to take the next step. Even when the path ahead is unclear, it is a strength that brings calm in the storm and assurance that we are never alone. When we lean on God's strength, we are not only empowered to face our challenges, but we are also given the peace that surpasses understanding. A peace that guards our hearts and minds, even in the most difficult circumstances. And it's in those moments of weakness when we feel like we cannot go on that God's strength shines the brightest. It's when we recognize that we are not enough on our own that we truly experience the power of God's presence. Our own strength might falter, but God's strength never fails. When we humble ourselves and admit our need for Him, He responds by filling us with the power and grace we need to keep going. There is no struggle too great, no burden too heavy that God's strength cannot handle. He will never leave us or forsake us. He is with us every step of the way, offering us the strength we need to endure no matter what we face. In the midst of our trials, we can rest assured that God will give us the strength to endure. We may not know how long the journey will take or what the future holds, but we can be confident that God will never leave us to face it alone. He is our strength, our help, and our refuge. In Him we can find the power to stand firm, to persevere, and to rise above every obstacle. When we rely on God's strength, we are empowered to endure, not just for today, but for the long haul. And in the end, when we look back on the journey, we will see that it was God's strength that carried us through, and we will have a testimony of His faithfulness that will inspire others to trust in Him as well. There is an undeniable truth that we must hold on to in the midst of our struggles. God's timing is always perfect, even when it doesn't align with our own understanding. So often, in the rush of life, we find ourselves wanting things to happen immediately. We want our prayers to be answered quickly. We want our circumstances to change right now, and we want God to show up in the ways we expect on our timeline. But what we fail to realize in those moments is that God's timing is not driven by our need for speed. It is driven by His infinite wisdom and His perfect understanding of what we need when we need it. We are finite beings, limited by time and space. We only see a small fraction of the picture. We see the present moment and the things that are right in front of us. We are focused on the immediate and on what is happening now. But God sees the beginning, the middle, and the end of our lives all at once. He knows what is best for us in the long term, and He knows how every piece of our journey fits together. This means that sometimes the delays we experience are not a reflection of God's lack of concern or inability to act, but rather a reflection of His wisdom and His perfect timing. When we look at the lives of those who came before us, we see countless examples of how God's timing was always impeccable, even when it seemed like everything was falling apart in the moment. Think about Abraham and Sarah, who waited for years for the promised child. They were in their old age, and it seemed impossible for them to have a child. Yet God had made them a promise. In their impatience, they tried to make it happen on their own, but that only led to more complications. It wasn't until God's perfect timing, when Sarah was far beyond the age of childbirth, that He fulfilled His promise. Had they received the promise earlier, they may not have fully understood the magnitude of God's faithfulness, and it might not have carried the same weight. But in God's perfect timing, they were able to see His power in a way that would impact generations to come. Similarly, when we look at the story of Joseph, we see how God's timing played a crucial role in his life. Joseph was given dreams of greatness, but the path to fulfillment was long and filled with hardships. He was sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned for years. There were moments when it must have seemed like God's promises would never come to pass. But in the fullness of time, God elevated Joseph to a position of great authority, and the dreams he had as a young man were fulfilled. What we sometimes fail to see in the midst of our waiting is that the delays, the struggles, and the setbacks are often part of the preparation for what God has in store for us. God was working behind the scenes during all those years in Joseph's life, preparing him for the moment when he would save his family and the nation of Egypt from famine. Without those years of training and preparation, Joseph wouldn't have been equipped for the position he was called to. God's timing doesn't just impact big moments like these. It touches every area of our lives. We often struggle with waiting for the things we desire, whether it's a job, a relationship, healing, or the restoration of a situation. But what we need to understand is that waiting is not a passive experience. It is a time when God is working in us, preparing us for the things that are coming. While we wait, God is refining our character, growing our faith, and teaching us to trust in Him more deeply. It is in the waiting that we are shaped and molded into the people who are ready to receive what God has prepared for us. In those times when we feel as though nothing is happening, it's important to remember that God is never inactive. Just because we can't see the movement doesn't mean that God isn't working. He is constantly moving, arranging circumstances and positioning us for the blessings that are coming. It's like planting a seed. You don't see the growth happening beneath the soil, but the roots are taking hold, and in time, the plant will break through the ground and bloom. Similarly, during our times of waiting, God is doing a work within us that is invisible to the naked eye. He is strengthening our roots so that when the time comes, we will be able to stand firm and thrive in the new season. It is also crucial to remember that while we wait, God is not indifferent to our struggles. He cares deeply about what we are going through, and He is present with us in our waiting. He sees our tears, He hears our cries, and He understands the pain of delay. But in His perfect love and wisdom, He knows that there is a greater purpose in our waiting. We may not understand it now, but when the fulfillment of His promises comes, we will look back and see how everything was part of His perfect plan. We will see how the waiting was not wasted, but was preparing us for the blessing that was ahead. Sometimes we get caught up in trying to force things to happen according to our own timeline. We pray for things to come quickly, and when they don't, we begin to doubt. We wonder if we've done something wrong, or if we're not worthy of the blessings we desire. But what we must understand is that God's timing is not about our worthiness. It is about His love for us. It is about His desire to give us the best. God is not holding back good things from us. He is simply making sure that we are ready to receive them at the right time. Just as a parent wouldn't give a child something they are not ready for, God, in His infinite wisdom, gives us what we need when we are ready to handle it. And it is in those moments of waiting that we are called to trust God's timing. Trust that He knows what is best for us, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Trust that He is working behind the scenes, preparing the way, and making sure that everything is in place for the perfect moment. Our job is not to rush the process, but to rest in the assurance that God's timing will always be perfect. When we surrender to His timing, we open ourselves up to receive the full measure of His blessings and promises. Waiting can be hard, but it is never in vain. Every moment of delay is part of God's plan to bring us into His perfect will. When we wait with faith and patience, we are positioned to experience the fullness of what God has in store for us. And when the moment comes, when the answer to our prayers arrives, we will realize that it came at just the right time. It will be a testimony of God's faithfulness, a reminder that He is always working on our behalf, even when we can't see it. So, in the waiting, hold fast to the belief that God's timing is always perfect, and that He is preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. There are moments in life when we find ourselves standing at the crossroads of uncertainty, feeling unsure about the next step to take. We look around us and it seems like everyone else has their path figured out, while we're left questioning the direction we should go. These times of indecision can bring with them a sense of confusion and frustration, making it hard to move forward. But in those moments, we must remember one profound truth. God's plan for our lives is bigger, greater, and more complete than anything we could ever imagine. The uncertainty we feel is not a sign of being lost. It is an invitation to trust in God's divine direction, which is always leading us towards something better, something more fulfilling. God's plan for us isn't limited by our understanding, and it is not confined to the small scope of what we think is possible. Our human minds are finite, but God's plans are infinite. He sees the beginning and the end, and He knows exactly what is best for us. When we are uncertain about the way forward, we often need to pause and remember that God has a purpose for us that is far beyond our ability to grasp. His plan isn't just about where we go. It's about who we become along the way. The experiences, lessons, and challenges we face are all part of the larger story that God is weaving in our lives. Sometimes we can get so caught up in trying to control every detail that we forget that God has already mapped out a perfect plan for us. The uncertainties we face are not random or meaningless. God is at work even when we can't see the immediate result of His efforts. Every twist and turn, every challenge and breakthrough is part of a larger tapestry that He is weaving. It's easy to think that the waiting periods or the moments of confusion are signs that we've missed something or that we're not on the right track. But in reality, those moments of uncertainty are often when God is doing some of His most important work in us. It is during these times that we are called to trust Him more deeply, to surrender our need for control, and to lean into His wisdom. God's plan for us is not one that unfolds all at once. We don't get to see every step laid out before us, and often we only get a glimpse of the road ahead. It is a walk of faith, and it requires us to trust that though we cannot see the entire path, God is with us every step of the way. When we look back on our lives, we often realize that it wasn't the moments when we had everything figured out that shaped us the most. It was the moments of uncertainty that allowed God to shape our hearts, strengthen our faith, and teach us to rely on Him. It's when we don't have all the answers that we learn to trust in His guidance more fully. There's a beautiful thing about God's plan. It is always for our good. The Bible reminds us that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. This means that even when life seems to be unfolding in unexpected ways, we can trust that God is using it for our benefit. The trials, the delays, the detours, these are all part of His plan to refine us, to build our character, and to make us more like Him. Look, the plans He has for us are always aimed at our growth, our peace, and ultimately our eternal joy. His understanding of what is best for us far surpasses our own understanding. While we might be focused on short-term comfort or immediate success, God's vision for us stretches far beyond the moment. When we are unsure of our next steps, we are invited to lean into God's wisdom and trust His leading. His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. That means when we don't know where to go, we can look to Him for direction. God doesn't leave us to navigate life's uncertainties alone. He is always speaking, guiding, and leading us, even when we cannot see the path clearly. The key is to be attentive to his voice and to stay close to him, trusting that he will direct our steps. The more we seek him, the clearer his plan will become. The more we listen, the more we'll recognize the gentle promptings of the Holy Spirit guiding us in the right direction. At times, it can feel like the road ahead is unclear, and we may question if we are truly walking in the will of God. We might worry that we are missing something or that we've taken the wrong turn. But the truth is, God's plan is not thwarted by our mistakes or by our uncertainties. Even when we veer off course, God, in his mercy, will redirect us and guide us back to his perfect plan. Our mistakes are not the end of the story. They are part of the process of growth. God can take our missteps, our detours, and our wrong turns and use them to bring about something greater in our lives. He is a God who redeems, who restores, and who makes all things new. When we surrender our plans to him, he will take our lives with all their imperfections and uncertainties and transform them into something beautiful. Sometimes we need to trust that God is working behind the scenes in ways we can't see or understand. Just because we can't immediately see the fruit of our efforts or the answers to our prayers doesn't mean that God isn't at work. Often his plan is unfolding in ways that we can't yet comprehend. We might be in a season of preparation, where God is laying the groundwork for something bigger down the road. What feels like a period of waiting or uncertainty may be the very thing that God is using to prepare us for the next season of our lives. The time we spend in the unknown is never wasted. God is always preparing us for what is to come, and he is faithful to bring about his purpose in our lives, no matter how long it takes. Ultimately, the plan that God has for us is always the best plan. We might not always understand the twists and turns of the journey, but we can trust that God's plan is good and it is worth the wait. His purpose for our lives is always filled with hope and a future. When we are uncertain of the way forward, we are called to remember that God knows the way and he will lead us faithfully to where we need to be. It is in the uncertainty that our faith grows. It is in the moments of doubt and confusion that we learn to trust God more deeply. And when we do finally step into the fulfillment of God's plan for us, we will look back and see how every moment of uncertainty was part of his perfect work, shaping us into who we are meant to be. We will realize that in the end, his plan was not only worth the wait, it was beyond anything we could have imagined for ourselves.